Hi everyone and welcome to Frostpunk 1.0. So, you might have watched my previous 3 videos with the Frostpunk press preview build. This is 1.0. There are still some bits missing, but the entire story is basically already here. So this is 99% of the final game. Really looking forward to that. If you didn't see any of my press demo videos and you are interested, they will be linked in video description below and on the cards in the video itself, in the top right corner. So, let's get started, shall we? A new home. To preserve civilization from the chaos of its own downfall, we have fled to the end of the world. We will have to adapt to survive. Who will we become in the process? Oh, you can actually customize the scenario. Okay. Easy, medium, hard. People's needs, economy, weather, society's attitude. Interesting. Alright, let's go with medium. A new home. We fled from London and crossed the sea to reach the frozen north. On the way, our convoy was hit by a blizzard and scattered. A handful of us managed to reach the site of this generator, only to find it frozen solid and abandoned. Why is no one here? Did any of our people survive the blizzard? Are there any others out there? Whatever we do, we should expect the worst now that the world as we know it has crumbled. We have to survive. So, I already played through the press demo quite a few times, so I'm familiar with all the basics, but I will try to explain them as I go, if you are not familiar with them. Fight the cold. So first we need to get the generator working, which means we need coal. Coal is one of the most important resources in the game, because without coal your generator will stop, and without your generator working, people will just freeze to death. Then we also have wood and steel, which are used for buildings. Wood is also used for research. Both wood and steel are important. Wood is more important early on. Steel is used for a lot of the more advanced buildings. And then we also have steam cores, which we'll talk about later, we won't be needing them in the near future. Then we have raw food and food rations. Your people obviously need to eat, and you need a cookhouse to prepare food rations. They will eat raw food if you run out of food rations, but it's not what they prefer, obviously. Then we also have days over here. We can see that the temperature will drop significantly 4 days in, so that's something to keep in mind. We also have work time, because people will not work 24 hours a day. They have shifts, although you can force them to go on an emergency shift. Here we got the construction menu, which we will go through in just a moment. We also have a book of laws, and we can adapt one law every like 24 hours, or a bit more than that. Or at least we can take one law every X amount of days. And a lot of them are mutually exclusive. So for example, we can take soup, or we can take food additives. We cannot take both. So, in this case, we can cook soup instead of full meals to feed more people with the same amount of raw food. And you can see the exact effects down here. We'll get a new recipe, the soup, available in the cookhouses. Hope will fall slightly, discontent will rise slightly, and eating soup will cause discontent. We'll talk about hope and discontent in just a second. And the alternative is food additives. We can add sawdust to meals to make them more filling, although not exactly tasty or healthy. So with that, we'll unlock the sawdust meal available in the cookhouse. Hope will fall slightly, discontent will rise slightly, and some people eating sawdust meals will fall ill, which can be a problem, but if you're desperate, it is an option. Here we got emergency shifts, which is something I already mentioned. We can force people to work in any facility for the next 24 hours. It can be very useful in a lot of different situations. Then another major decision early on is child labor versus child shelters. Then we got radical treatment versus sustained life. We'll talk about all of them as we go. And then we have the cemetery or corpse disposal, as you can see. So this unlocks the snow pit, and the cemetery unlocks the cemetery, as you might have guessed. So, to start with, I might actually take emergency shift. This also leads to extended shift decision. We could also take child labor, which sounds really bad, but it's a very useful one. Even if you take child shelters, they can be useful later because you can turn them into medic apprentices and engineer apprentices, which can be very useful. But if you go the child labor route, you can have them take all jobs. So you know what? It's a harsh world, we'll go for child labor. Now, before we unpause, we can assign people. Down here we can see how many people we have right now. We have 80 total. We got 50 idle workers, 15 idle engineers, and 15 idle children. Then we got content and hope. If this content goes up to 100%, that's obviously bad. If hope goes down to 0, you pretty much lose. So you need to keep an eye on them. The general idea is to keep this content low and keep hope as high as possible, or at least not let it drop to 0. Here we can see temporary modifiers, so we have a controversial law which will cause hope to go down in the next 24 hours. So that's also something to keep in mind. Then the last window is economy, where we can see a lot of information about our colony. There's not much to see here right now because we didn't really do much, but this is where you can get a lot of information at a glance. So our first goal is to stockpile 200 coal and activate the generator. We have some coal piles initially, where we can gather some coal, but they only have 500, so they will actually run out pretty quickly. We'll need other ways to gather coal, and that's going to be one of our early priorities. We'll assign people here and here, then we are going to need wood, because wood is used for a lot of things early on. We don't really need a lot of steel right now, but we can assign 5 workers to the steel wreckage. And that will leave us with 15 engineers unassigned. We can still assign them to something. We'll assign them to coal for now. The more coal we have, the better. Here we can see some tutorial messages. These are really basic ones about camera control. Alright, and we can speed things up a little bit. You can pause, you can use normal speed, fast speed, and very fast speed. Very fast will go pretty damn quickly. Oh, and we got 15 hours before we can take another law. So, just something to keep an eye on. And if we took emergency shifts, for example, we would be able to activate that in the building view. Or in this case, in the workplace view. Construction. So yeah, wood and steel are necessary for construction research. As you might have guessed, steam cores are a key part of advanced buildings. Again, if you are interested in a more in-depth look at all these basic mechanics, I made 3 videos with the press demo build a few months ago, and they will be linked both in the video description and in the cards. But I will go over the basic mechanics quickly. Alright, and here we got an event. No roof over our heads. Captain, people are understandably concerned about the lack of shelter. They're falling ill from sleeping outside in this terrible cold. We'd better do something about it. So here we have a few options. We can promise to provide some shelter, and we'll have 2 days to provide shelter for 40 people. We can promise to provide shelter for everyone, then we'll have 2 days to provide shelter for 80 people. Or we can refuse to address it right now. If we refuse to address it right now, this content will rise slightly. But if we promise to provide them shelter and then fail to do it in the provided time span, then the negative effect will be much bigger. So for now, we can provide them with some shelter. And there are basically 2 different options early on. You can build tents, and you can unlock a house, or whatever it's called, a little bit later. For now, we'll build tents, because that's the only option we have at the moment. 4 tents will be enough. We already got 200 coal, so now we can activate the generator over here. Steam level 1. We can increase the generator's efficiency and area of effect by researching some technologies. We'll talk about research once we actually get to the point of researching things. Here we got some temperature information. So there are different levels of temperature in every single workplace. If it goes below chilly, people there will not be able to work. So that's something to keep in mind. And obviously the generator is the source of the heat and the heart of the city. This is the most important building you have. So now if we switch to temperature overlay view, we can see the exact temperature levels. And we can click on individual buildings. We can see that this one is chilly, so there's a low risk of getting ill. Some workplaces are fine when it's chilly, others are not. Alright, so let's speed up. Food. So now we need to get some food. Right now we don't have a whole lot of options to get food. The main one is to build the hunter's hut, and then we'll need the cookhouse. Now we do have 100 raw food right now, but we will need the hunter's hut to get more. First we are going to need a road, because as you can see, if I try to place it right now, it will not be adjacent to a street. And it doesn't have to be directly next to the generator, because it doesn't need that much heat. The tents need heat way more than this. We can build a street, so we can build it towards the actual resources. Once we run out of the coal and wood, we'll need buildings that will utilize the frozen trees, for example. So we'll need a sawmill in this general area later on. We also have coal deposits up here, so we will need a coal mine. We can build a road in this general direction, since we will need it eventually, and we need a road right now. So how about we place one more tent, like so, and then we can build the road. The road does use some wood, just something to keep in mind. Here, that will be the road. And we got another event, the wisdom of the crowd. Captain, when facing demands, remember this. People usually look for the quickest solution, not the best one. You don't have to agree to everything they ask for. If you fix the problem your way, it's fine. Yep. Nothing new right here. Now, one of our priorities early on will be to build a beacon and actually explore the world. Because that's not all there is. You can explore, in fact you should explore, it's one of the goals of the game. So now that we have the road, we can build the hunter's hut, slightly outside of the generator range. Over here will be good, and then the cookhouse. Right here. So that will do. And we can unassign the workers from the steel wreckage for now. Shelter promise fulfilled. So hope rises because we fulfilled our promise. Not by much, but every little bit helps. We can also hover over this indicator down here and see where exactly the people are assigned, with the yellow indicators right now. So we can unassign the engineers from the coal. We got 500 coal, and we can see that this will be enough for around 3 days. People from our convoy. With basic resources secured for now, we can try to rescue the people we left behind. Build a beacon, scout the Frostland, and save as many survivors from our expedition as possible. We'll need a workshop to design plans for more advanced buildings. So the next thing we'll be building will be the workshop. And now we have to assign people to the hunter's hut. So we are going to need a few more workers. We'll just unassign them from the coal pile. 15 workers in the hunter's hut, and 5 workers in the cookhouse. We can also assign engineers if we want to. We can dismantle buildings, but obviously there's no need to do that right now. Here we can see who exactly is working here, so we can select that person and see some details about that specific person. We can see what his or her home is, the children, the spouse, the workplace, the health, and you can do that for every single member of the colony. Now we can grab another law. So we could go for child labor all jobs, we could get emergency shift, we could enable the fighting arena, which will lower this content. There's no need to do that right now, but the fighting arena leads to some other useful buildings. We can also get the soup, which we'll probably want sooner or later. So you know what, let's take the soup, and we'll make some soup instead of standard meals. So you can see the exact details here. With the standard meal, the cookhouse will produce 4 food rations from 2 raw food. With soup, it will produce 5 food rations from 2 raw food. So that is quite a significant difference, actually. Here we got some information on the hunters. They will bring back some raw food from each hunt. We got information about food and hunger. And then illness and healthcare. We are going to need medical post next to treat the sick. And then we'll probably have to take radical treatment or something similar for the gravely ill, but we'll worry about that a little bit later. One step at a time. We still need the workshop, so that is going to be our next priority. That's under tech. So there's the workshop. Hold on, that's actually not in range of the road, is it? Okay, workshop. Right here. That's next to the street. And we can place a few more tents, because we are going to need them. Here, that will do. And then we'll need a medical post once we get the wood. Wood is a pretty important resource early on. How much are we gathering right now? There should be one more wood pile. Yep, wood crates over here. We can send the engineers at least temporarily. Coal situation looks more than fine. Carry on then. Here we got some information about day and night cycle. People don't work during the night, obviously, unless you force them to work with emergency shift. Sometimes it is really the only choice. Okay, here's the workshop. We can unassign a few people from the wood crates and assign them to the workshop. So here you go, we need engineers specifically for the workshop. And we can pick our first research. So there are a few categories in here, and there are also tiers of research. We got heating, we got exploration and industry, which is where we unlock the beacon. We got resources, and we got food, health, and shelter. Here we got hunter's gear, for example, which will make hunters more efficient. The first thing we'll get will be the beacon, I think. We just need a little bit of wood. So we need to wait for people to actually gather some wood. In this case we need 10 wood. That will not take very long. So there it is. And first thing we'll get is the beacon. Alright then. That will require 35 steel. So probably a good idea to send more people to the steel wreckage. Where is everyone assigned right now? Coal pile. We can remove a few from the coal pile. Wood crates. 10 people over there. More wood crates. Actually, yeah, this is fine. 10 workers to the steel wreckage. That should be fine. We mostly need steel to build the beacon once we finish the research, but the research will take a little bit of time to complete. Now we can see that it will get colder pretty soon, that the temperature levels will drop significantly. So heating might be a problem temporarily, but there are solutions to that, which we'll talk about when we get there. Child injured at work. Give this kid a day off. Scold this kid for being careless. Yeah, a day off is fine. Hope will rise slightly. And family torn apart. Sir, a woman came forward after we built the workshop. She said that her husband and daughter didn't reach the city with the main group, but she's sure they're still out there. She wants to join the first scout team we'll send out. We'll do what we can. We are working on it, we are literally researching the beacon right now. to be able to send an expedition. Here we got some information about the research. Pick 3 categories, I was talking about that already. And workforce. So children can't be employed at all initially, we already talked about that too. We can see that certain buildings only employ workers, sometimes just engineers, sometimes either workers or engineers. So just something to keep in mind. We got 4 people who are sick, so probably a good idea to get the medical post. That is going to be our next priority. That will cost us 25 wood actually. We got 56, that should be enough. So we can build it next to the generator, or we can build it slightly away from it and then install a heater. But first we would have to actually research the heater to begin with. But it is an option, we can do it. Let's see. So how about a quick road? Something like this. And then we'll build the medical post next to the road. Okay, that will do. We just need a few workers now. So unassign them from other things. Our coal level looks reasonable at the moment. How many people are working coal? Only 10 of them actually. Alright, unassign a few from the wood crates. In fact, unassign all of them from the wood crates for now. So research should be done soon. As you can see, less than an hour. And there it is. So now we finished researching the beacon, and we can build it once we are able to afford it. The beacon is under tech, and as we already know, it requires 20 wood and 35 steel. We are working on the steel, we'll get it soon enough. So next up, since we do have a cold wave incoming, it would be a good idea to do something about that. We got 2 options. We can get a steam hub, which requires 20 steel, or we can unlock heaters, which can be installed with wood in an individual building, and then it will increase the coal consumption of that building. We will get heaters simply because steel is a little bit too valuable early on to use it on steam hubs. So there it is. And after that we will likely get the coal Thumper, which is a building that we can use to get coal, without having to rely on the coal piles, which will run out of coal eventually. This one is already down to 322 and we aren't even working it. This one is down to 220, so we already grabbed more than half the coal from this particular pile. Now we just need 35 steel. Let's wait for that. Now, we are at 34 steel, so we could speed things up by enabling emergency shift here. Oh, actually we didn't pick up emergency shift, did we? Not yet, but we will be able to do it in just a moment, in 2 hours. If we don't want to wait, because we would have to wait until tomorrow to get literally 1 more steel and start building the beacon. You know, I'm just saying. I don't necessarily want to wait that long. We got 247 food rations, so that should be fine. Oh, and we need a few people assigned to the medical post. So engineers. I'm just waiting for the book of laws right now. Here, so now we can pick up emergency shift. We are going to need it sooner or later. So there it is. And I'm actually going to enable emergency shift at the steel wreckage and assign a few more people to not let it go to waste. Hold on, maybe not engineers, because I don't want engineers to get injured. Regular workers will be fine. So off you go. Here, now we got 47 steel, and we can place the beacon. The beacon doesn't have to be next to the generator. We'll just place it somewhere up here. That is perfectly fine. Yep, this is perfectly fine. We can place it up here. And another event. A protective mother. A mother has refused to let her daughter go to work, afraid she'll get injured. We could look the other way this time, but others might see it as unfair. Let her have a day off? We won't make an exception. Nothing will change. This child won't work for the next 24 hours. Hope will rise slightly. Yeah, fine, we can make hope rise slightly. Now, there are some events a little bit later that make hope fall drastically. Just something to keep in mind. So here's some information about hope and discontent. When needs are not fulfilled, discontent rises, as you might have guessed. So now we just need to wait for the workday to start. And as soon as the beacon is finished, we'll be able to send the expedition. And steel wreckage was already depleted, which is fine. And here it is. So now that we built the beacon, we can send an expedition. So here's the map. We got two locations that we can check out right now. The Lost Expedition and the Gloomy Cave. We should get some people from the Lost Expedition, so that's the one we'll go for initially. First we have to actually deploy the unit. We need 40 wood and 5 workers, which we have. So there he is. Now we can grab him and tell him to go to the Lost Expedition. He will need 11 hours to arrive there. We could get another, but maybe not right now, because that's not exactly free, as you saw. And this building cannot support another expedition. We would need to build another beacon. We can't really afford that luxury at the moment. So no thanks. Wood crates were depleted. Okay. We'll send some more people to the coal pile. And we are still going to need more wood. It's probably a good idea to unlock the sawmill next. Ready to search. People cheer as the giant observation balloon soars above the city. This is a real feat. Everyone feels proud of the work they've done to make it happen. Volunteers have lined up, eager to go looking for our lost people in the Frostland. The woman who came forward earlier is among them. We needed a win. Alright then. So, 5 more people need some work. We still got some wood crates down here. I don't necessarily want to send engineers there. We are getting wood, so it's probably fine. Yeah, we got 15 assigned to wood crates over here. This is going to be fine. Alright, now it might not be a bad idea to build another hunter's hut, because we are going to need more food. And one hunter's hut will not be enough forever. So I'm going to build a second one kind of preemptively. Simply because, again, we are going to need more food. No doubt about that. And heaters were researched. So now when we click on a building, we will be able to install the heaters. There's no need to install them here at the moment. But it will be a problem once the temperature actually drops. Right now the temperature is more than fine, as you can see. It's comfortable, we don't need heaters in here. It's even comfortable in the hunter's hut. And it's livable in the cookhouse. But we could install the heater right here, next to the emergency shift icon. Anyway, next research. So, next up, we should unlock the resource buildings, which are the coal thumper and the sawmill. We are going to need both, but we can only get one at a time. We could also unlock hunter's gear, which is not a bad idea. It's certainly useful. That will take 7 hours at our current rate. They will all take 7 hours at our current rate. 10 wood for hunter's gear. Let's unlock the sawmill. Food shouldn't be an issue right now, especially with second hunter's hut. So I'm not worried about that at all. So let's wait for our first expedition to finish its thing. That's one of our next goals. Rescue survivors of our lost expedition. Nobody is sick, so that's great.
Workday ends. It's off time.
Carry on then. 30 minutes. Weather changes. Right, so now it will get colder. Hey, wait, that was the wrong tab. Here. The temperature in the city is constantly changing. Pay close attention to the forecast of the next 5 days that is shown to the right of the temperature at the top of the screen. Yeah, obviously. So once the temperature falls, we will need relatively more heating to actually keep the buildings warm enough. Which is why we research the heaters. We can also upgrade the generator itself a little bit later. So we arrived at the lost expedition. Now we can search the area. A happy reunion. We entered the camp, appearing out of the driving snow. A choir of excited welcomes us. Thank God you found us. We have been wandering for days until we couldn't go on any longer. Soon we'd begin to starve. Children and adults surround us, packed and ready to go. And we discovered 2 new sites, observatory and sturdy shelter. We could escort them back to the city, or we could send them to the city. But that one is a little bit risky and some of them may die. We will escort them back to the city and then we can go in the other direction, towards the gloomy cave. That is certainly a possibility. So now they need 5 hours, 24 minutes. Alright then. And I think this will be a good moment to make a cut. So I'm going to continue in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and like I said, if you are interested in my free press build videos that I made a few months ago, they will be linked in the video description below and in the cards in top right corner. Thanks for watching this one though, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.